If you've been saving up for a new flagship device this festive season, then Tech Today has you covered. Of course, we have the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the latest and greatest from Apple. But then Apple has competition from the US here in India, and happens to be a company called Google, who has returned to India with the flagship Pixel 7 Pro. So when you're talking about design, they both look distinctly different. The camera bump here is very prominent, but then these guys have an entire different unit housing the cameras over here. It's really subjective. I really think this looks very cool. When you're placing it on a surface, surprisingly, both of them don't wobble too much. The iPhone wobbles a little bit more, but that's only external beauty that we're talking about with these devices. That's very subjective. What powers these devices? This is Apple's pride, the A16 Bionic chip. It's gotten much better than last year's iPhone. But then Google has its own tensor now called G2. Both of them are not relying on other chip makers. They're doing this in-house. And if you believe all these Geekbench scores and online YouTube reviews, you'll see that the iPhone does a far better job on these parameters. But if you're using these phones with their implementation of stock Android, what is stock Android? It's exactly how Google wanted you to experience their software prowess out of the box. And of course, iOS in this sort of ecosystem that Apple has created, very different approaches. But if you're talking about, well, G2 versus A16 and getting geeky about it, this is 12 GB RAM, I think this is 6 GB RAM. But it doesn't make much of a difference because it's very snappy. Both phones with their animations are amazing. The time that we've been using both devices, they haven't crashed on us. And you always keep getting updates on both these stock software devices, so to speak. Okay, let me try this. We're going to play a no copyright soundtrack here on the iPhone. Okay, that was the iPhone. Now let's see what the Pixel 7 Pro is like. When you listen to the sound output on these speakers, the iPhone 14 Pro Max is a clear winner. Much richer, much more quality sound coming out of these speakers. The speaker system here is subpar if you want to compare it to the iPhone. It can beat a lot of Android manufacturers, and I've often noticed it on Android phones that the speaker systems aren't always at par with the iPhone. Over here as well, the iPhone 14 Pro Max wins by a country mile. If you're an iPhone fanboy or an Android fanboy, then we must address the elephant in the room, which is all about software. This comes with stock Android, Android 13 out of the box, and it is fascinating in terms of some of the things that you can do. This comes with iOS 16. It's refined, it's classy, and it's the OG. But of course, this is confined to an iOS ecosystem, these devices. As always, the ecosystem argument. This is stock Android in all its splendor. And there are many things about this device that make it even more special than other phones which come close to stock Android. The Pixel has inherent advantages. For instance, now within the Google Messages app, you can transcribe audio messages. Additionally, you can use your phone to answer or decline incoming phone calls with a single word. Yes, I love taking selfies for my Instagram, and you can always reach out to us on our social media handles. But when you have two of the best camera systems in the world from Apple and Google, then you have to try out the cameras. We're going to do an extensive review on this show, this very segment. But right now what I can tell you is a little bit of theory, and then we'll go into the practice mode. Theory-wise, they both have a triple camera system. The Pixel 7 Pro houses a 50 megapixel wide camera, 48 megapixel telephoto, and a 12 megapixel ultra-wide. The iPhone 14 Pro Max isn't very far behind, and they've actually upgraded their camera sensors. Finally, it's not just 12 ultra-wide and 12 telephoto and 12 primary. They've now bumped it up to a 48 megapixel primary sensor as well. And we know on social media, there's always the Pixel gang or Team Pixel, and then of course the shot on iPhone gang. This has been the most consistent device when you're taking photos, and very good for videos as well. In fact, we're shooting this on an iPhone. What's the video like? Let us know. Now let's get back to our studio camera. Look, the iPhone is fantastic for video, but Pixel has tried to upgrade that as well. Why should I be right here in the studio telling you all of this? Let's take you outside. for a quick spin showing you what the photos and videos on both devices are all about. I'm smiling because I'm holding the Pixel 7 Pro and it's still standing in this verdict. The last man standing happens to be the Pixel 7 Pro at half the price of an iPhone 14 Pro or a 14 Pro Max. This is a very enticing option this festive season. You're getting the best software experience on an Android phone yet. You're also getting really cool features, maybe not dynamic island, but a fantastic camera as well. In many tests, the Pixel can do as well or better when it comes to taking photos on your smartphone, and that's saying a lot for a phone which costs half as much as other flagships. If you are not in the Apple ecosystem and are looking for an Android device, this is the best Android device yet, and I think a very strong buy for the festive season.